more than any other age.
Huh. Good morning, everyone. I am Keith Tuominen-Lenny, and I am happy to be your worship associate today in this, our virtual format.
No, it's Keith.
Welcome, everyone, to Tapestry. We are a congregation with a commitment to honoring diversity, to practice loving our neighbors and loving our whole selves, and to serving one another and our wider community. This hour is an opportunity to reflect and open ourselves to encounter the sacred, however each person defines the sacred. Welcome. Thank you for your patience as we are learning this new way of being together in community. Please remember to keep your microphone muted throughout the service. There may be a few times where we can do that talking, but it will mainly be at the end of our service. And if you would like to keep your video on, we would love to see your smiling faces in the gallery portion of it. Our minister, the Reverend Kent Doss, is not preaching today. However, he will be back with us next Sunday. Today, we have the great privilege of welcoming Dr. Stuart Perlman as our guest speaker. Dr. Perlman has been a psychologist and a psychoanalyst in private practice in West Los Angeles for 40 years. He received his PhD from UCLA in clinical psychology and a second PhD in psychoanalysis. He has published many articles in psychoanalytical journals and authored the book, the therapist, emotional survival, dealing with the pain of exploring trauma. His new book, Struggle in Paradise, is about homeless individuals, featuring moving oil on canvas portraits, life stories, and follow-ups. This painting project has been nominated for the Best Art of the Year award by the National Association for the Advancement of Psychoanalysts. Dr. Perlman won the 2016 Los Angeles County Psychological Association's Social Justice Award, and the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors gave him an award in 2017 for his work on behalf of homeless people. We'll hear more about Dr. Perlman as I introduce him for his sermon. We look forward to hearing from Dr. Perlman later in our service. At this time, I would invite people to find a chalice or a candle and light yours at home as we light our chalice together. Oh, I think I may have jumped on our, so hold on to your chalice lighting. We will do that in just a bit. But now I would invite everyone to greet each other in our chat function. You can find that on the bottom of your screen. We will have the opportunity at the end to actually have conversation, as our Zoom meeting will remain open for people to connect afterwards. But now if you could send a hello to everyone through our chat function, it would be great to hear from you. Thanks everyone for taking the time to greet one another and for being here this morning. Even in this environment, Tapestry has fun events for people of every age and interest. We are still active with several meetings on Zoom and with social justice actions that you can make from home. Here are a couple of our upcoming events. Each Sunday, there's a special Zoom meeting for newcomers to chat with Reverend Kent after the service at 11:45. Please see the order of service for that link. Also this Sunday, our Green Sanctuary Committee is asking us to take action on this Earth Day by reaching out to our representatives, letting our representatives know what we think is actually pretty easy. See your order of service for simple instructions. With all eyes focused on the pandemic, we still have to protect the earth, and what better time than now to do that? You can find more information about events in the order of service, our Tapestry newsletter, and our website. I'm pleased at this time to introduce someone with important thoughts and things to share. My son, Ryan Tuominen-Lenny. I've been learning so much from Ryan and his involvement in Tapestry's task force, Welcoming Neighbors Home, and thought you would benefit more from his words than from mine at this time. Here's Ryan.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan Lenny, and I've had the honor of working with many amazing fellow members of Tapestry on our new initiative to help people without homes in Southern Orange County by getting more permanent supportive housing units built. In this work, I've had the opportunity to challenge what I thought I knew about people without homes and how they are treated, and I've learned valuable lessons along the way. I'd like to share some of those with you today. I watched an Orange County Board of Supervisors meeting last Tuesday, where the board held spirited deliberations about the opening up and taking care of our golf courses here in Orange County. The topic on the agenda that I was hoping to hear about, the progress being made in helping our neighbors without homes through this COVID-19 crisis in Orange County, was half-heartedly touched on, as we were told the same thing we've been told for a few weeks now. Although I do respect the importance of golfing to many in our community, I was disappointed by what I thought was a disproportionate amount of concern given to these issues. People without homes need our help now more than ever, and at the very least, I think they should deserve as much consideration as we give to golfers. Many people without homes have pre-existing health conditions, are elderly, and none of them have the ability to socially distance during this crisis. They lack basic access to sanitation and hygiene products, which makes staying clean and safe during this time next to impossible. The only safe haven offered to them is homeless shelters, where our neighbors without homes are crammed by the hundreds into close quarters to share just a few restrooms. And yet our elected officials have done nearly nothing. When the county tried to open up hotels to give people without homes safe shelter, several cities even filed lawsuits against this initiative. As of last week, only 37 of the nearly 7,000 people without homes in Orange County have been provided hotel rooms where they can safely isolate. It's as if our community is like a castle under siege. Everyone with resources is able to seek refuge behind the castle gates of social distancing and Purell in the safety of homes. But those without resources are left outside to face the onslaught of this virus. Just as they are making their way up the ramparts to some form of safety, those already watching safely from behind the walls throw the ladders down in fear of their own well-being. And so the people without homes in our communities are left stranded between a rock and a hard place. We make them choose between trying their luck on the streets, staying under lock and key in the rare hotel made available, or being stuffed into a shelter where they live in fear of contracting the virus from their dozens of roommates. And this treatment isn't new. Pandemic or not, people without homes are treated by our governments as second-rate citizens, instead of the long-time residents and integral members of our community that they are. What I've come to learn through my time working with and learning from all of my amazing fellow members of Tapestry's Welcoming Neighbors Home Initiative is that although housing solutions need to be implemented, the social norms and misconceptions held by our society about people without homes are at the root of this problem. As communities, we need to learn how to look past these unfair prejudices and open our hearts and minds to better understand who people experiencing homelessness truly are. That's a message well reflected in the song I've been humming ever since I stepped into a religious ed class here at Tapestry nearly a decade ago. The first of our 7 principles as you use, and the start of that song I'll never forget, is one, each person is important. Where that person comes from, who their family is, and what their hopes and dreams are in life truly matters. At one of my times volunteering at the alternative sleeping location in Laguna Beach with several other Tapestry congregants, I held the hand of a woman who told me I looked just like her grandson. I stood with her hand in mine as she told me about the fight she'd had with that grandson years ago, and how they haven't talked since. Suddenly, this person I had so often seen as just another face in the crowd was so much more. She was someone without a home, but not someone without a story. No, she had a story, and when I had the opportunity to hear it, I was able to empathize and relate. So when I finally let go of her hand and she left to go call her grandson, whom she hadn't talked to in years, I saw her as a person. Not a problem that needs solving, but a person just like me, who I would be honored to call my friend. As we move into this service, I encourage you all to open your hearts and minds to seek out the stories of those in your community who are so often ignored. Think of the times you might have looked the other way instead of offering a good morning or how do you do. And in the future, I hope that we all can strive to look at one, each, and every person as someone just like us, with a story that deserves to be heard. Thank you all. I'm going to pass it off back to my dad.
Thank you, Ryan. And at this time, I would invite everyone to light your chalice as we together light our virtual chalices across our homes. And as you do that, I will read this short chalice lighting prayer from Eric A. Heller Wagner, and it's titled, "Blessed is the fire that burns deep in the soul." Blessed is the fire that burns deep in the soul. It is the flame of the human spirit touched into being by the mystery of life. It is the fire of reason, the fire of compassion, the fire of community, the fire of justice, the fire of faith. It is the fire of love burning deep in the human heart, the divine glow in every life. Please join me now. Oh, I've got to put a reminder to everyone, because Zoom can only recognize one voice at a time. Please keep your microphones muted, but also read along with me in your homes as we share our covenant. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth and love, and to help one another. Today's opening words are written by Margaret Weiss. Come into this place with your whole self, the parts that are raw and exposed, the part that is beaming with joy, the part that is seeking the truth, the new, the possibility. Come into this place, open your heart, lay down your burden, lift up your hope for something new to happen. Come into this place with fellow travelers on the journey, some faces new and others familiar, and all welcoming you here, now, to this moment. Come, let us worship together.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. rejoice and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day, and to rejoice and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day, and to rejoice and come in. And to rejoice and come in. And to rejoice and come in. Today will be a joyful day, and to rejoice and come in.
Good morning, everyone. So a reminder as well before I get into the time for all ages, RE classes Sunday at 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. And then I am doing story times during the week on Tuesday and Thursday. These are all being done through Zoom, and I will put my email in the chat box here once I finish for any inquiries or questions or anything about any of those. For today's time for all ages, I just have two sort of short readings for us. The first from the Prophet Muhammad, and then the second is a old Chinese tale. So to begin, what actions are most excellent? To gladden the heart of a human being, to feed the hungry, to help the afflicted, to lighten the sorrow of the sorrowful, to remove the wrongs of the injured. That person is the most beloved of God, who does most good to God's creatures. And secondly, a short story entitled Holding Up the Sky. One day, an elephant saw a hummingbird lying on its back with its tiny feet up in the air. "What are you doing?" asked the elephant. The hummingbird replied, "I heard that the sky might fall today, and so I am ready to help hold it up should it fall." The elephant laughed cruelly. "Do you really think," he said, "that those tiny feet could help hold up the sky?" The hummingbird kept his feet up in the air, intent on his purpose, as he replied, "Not alone, but each of us must do what he can, and this is what I can do." The end.
Our reading today is from Jacob Trapp. If it is language that makes us human, one half of language is to listen. Silence can exist without speech, but speech cannot live without silence. Listen to the speech of others. Listen even more to their silence. To pray is to listen to the revelations of nature, to the meaning of events. To listen to music is to listen also to silence, and to find the stillness deepened and enriched.
We build a bridge, creating new paths. We forge with joy as hope walk together, embracing each one. We boldly stand.
Would you join me now for a short time of prayer or meditation? Spirit of life, God of many names, mystery beyond naming, we gather in thanks for this good day. In our wonder at human innovation and in our mastery of technology, we've taken one huge step away from the rhythm of actual life on our planet. The community we share in this hour is the fruit of billions of years of creative energy. Healing takes time. Growth takes time. Life takes time. In this anxious and confusing moment, may we find patience. In Earth's slow but persistent urge toward life, may we find patience. In the gentle flow of our own breaths, may we find patience. In the rising and setting of the sun, in the rhythm of this community, joining together every Sunday like clockwork for 40 years, may we find patience. As we enter our time of silent meditation, I invite you to let your mind slow down a bit. I promise the earth will keep spinning without your concern. For just a minute or so, let those concerns go and let us be together. Let us be together in silence. Namaste. Amen and blessed be.
I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Perlman and wanted to share just a little bit more in introduction. I want some additional opening words that Dr. Perlman has chosen, I think are so important for us to hear, and they come from Dr. King during his Nobel Peace Prize address in 1964. A second evil which plagues the modern world is that of poverty. Like a monstrous octopus, it projects its nagging, prehensile tentacles in lands and villages all over the world. Almost 2/3 of the peoples of the world go to bed hungry at night. They are undernourished, ill-housed, and shabbily clad. Many of them have no houses or beds to sleep in. Their only beds are the sidewalks of the cities and the dusty roads of the villages. Most of these poverty-stricken children of God have never seen a physician or a dentist.
Do I speak now? Hi, can people hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Stu.
Okay, this is my first Zoom talk, so first I'd like to start by complimenting Ryan Lenny for his excellent talk about the homeless, and I think he captured the humanity of one person to another, which is so important in our lives and keeping us healthy and happy and a sensitive community. I want to thank Rona and Reverend Kent for inviting me to speak to this beautiful congregation. It's an honor to share something very profound in my life with you. I believe there are many wonderful things in my life, my wife and kids, and I really love living in Southern California. It's my favorite place in the world. But that is not the topic I'm going to talk about today. I'm a psychologist, psychoanalyst, and an artist. And I'm also a trauma survivor. Went through some very difficult childhood experiences, car accidents, and many things. And most of the time, people are in denial and don't want to talk about it. So I have spent my life's work, my life mission, focusing on breaking the silence about atrocities and trauma. And I've been very profoundly moved by the depth of the effects of trauma, that they're usually lifelong and take a life struggle to contain and work and to heal. And healing is a very difficult process. Part of my own healing is I've been a psychoanalyst and a psychologist treating trauma survivors, very severe trauma survivors, for 45 years. And it's very heartbreaking to see the legacy of trauma and to see the horrors that people can perpetrate one on another. This brings us to the topic of homelessness. When I see a homeless person, I really look at the person and I think, there for the grace of God go I. I'm very aware of the fragility of life and how each of us is vulnerable human being where horrible things could happen to us, which might unhinge us from our wonderful lives and result in each one of us or any one of us to be homeless. Part of my biggest motivation in doing this work, which I've been doing for 12 years, 20 hours a week, is that there are so many horrible, wonderful things, but so many horrible things happening in our world that if I don't do something about it myself, then I feel that I can't live in this world. I believe each person is a unique individual who God has chosen to be among us. I'm Jewish, and that's an important part of my life. I believe in Judaism, but I believe in religion and its powerful positive force in the world. A fundamental Jewish belief is called Tikkun Olam, the moral responsibility of each of us to make this a better world. That each of us is responsible. And it's part of that belief that God asks us, what have each of us done to make this a better world, to bring heaven here on earth? And my moral responsibility in fulfilling that is my 20 hours a week working with the homeless. Yet, even though I've seen many people diligently working to help, many great nonprofits, many governmental agencies, homelessness has gone up in the last year in Los Angeles County, 28%. In Orange County, over two-year period from 2017 to 2019, homelessness went up 45% in Orange County. What does this say about our country? Gandhi said, the measure of a great civilization is to treat how it treats the weakest of us. The UN, I think, has done a lot of good work. And one thing the UN does is it does a site visit every couple of years to every country in the world and writes up what they have found about that society, what that country is doing. And the monitor who oversaw the visit to the United States was from Britain, and his name is Sir Philip Aston. He found the United States is appallingly harsh and cruel to its poor, that we have the highest infant mortality rate of any industrial nation and modern nation in the world, that poor people are labeled as lazy, bad, and defective by the media, that our government criminalizes poverty and homelessness. We have the highest percentage of people in jail and in prison than any other country in the world. Yet we are one of the richest countries in the world, and so many people live in squalor. He called the United States the world champion of income inequality, which exacerbates the homeless problem. COVID-19 makes this even worse. Being homeless is, people were dying on the streets before, well, they're dying even more. And it's very hard to get any housing. I've tried so hard to get housing for many people. I want to shine a light on the courage of homeless people to survive under horrible circumstances. And we're neglecting and throwing people away. I want to tell you how I came to this project. 12 years ago, my father died, and if he could die, I could probably die too. It was a shock. And so I started doing something I had wanted to do for a long time. So I started painting 12 years ago. But I took classes and we'd sit around a model, in a board model with 18 easels, and it wasn't very gratifying. So I knew a lot of homeless people on Venice Beach, where I live near, and I found their faces compelling, with powerful trauma and experience etched into their faces. I found some of the most interesting people I've ever met. Many not so nice people, but many kind, loving, accomplished people, attorneys, psychologists, lawyers, stockbrokers, very educated people as well as non-educated people. Hearing their stories broke my heart. Many times when I go home at night after painting, I cry. And some of these people have become dear friends of mine, and I've watched them die on the streets. It's very upsetting. I thought I'd turn something upsetting into something constructive. So I've spent many thousands of hours painting 250 people. And you've seen some of my portraits, and I collect their stories, their art, their poems. They have to sign a consent. I do a full history on them. I'm a psychologist, but I'm also a well-known psychoanalyst. As a psychologist, psychoanalyst in private practice, and a portrait painter, I wanted to marry this all into a public education and awareness project. That's the goal of my project. So I believe if you can see their faces, look into their eyes, have them look into your eyes, and hear their stories, their hearts, desires, their dreams, their traumas, and their hardships, you'll never see a homeless person the same again. My methodology is simple. I walk the same streets for the last 12 years, and I have gotten to know people. It's sometimes taken 4 or 5 years for people to trust me enough to be willing to be painted. I give out food, clothing, money, medical supplies, art supplies, and they have to sign a consent and they're paid. And I also pay them for their poems, their art, and any creation they've made. I usually paint them I used to paint them right where they live, right behind the garbage can. But now as I've gotten older, it's harder to carry and my paintings have gotten larger. Most of my paintings now are 5 feet by 4 feet or 4 feet by 4 feet. I now take 1,000 photos of each person and paint at home. I'd like to tell you the story about 4 different people. Can we get my first slide, please? One reason I got involved with the Painting the Homeless is outside my office, where I treat many times very wealthy people, there was this gentleman sleeping there. Can you go to the next slide? This is the site outside my office. Roy, 53 years old, was a very successful electrician in Arizona, making a great living doing electrical work in housing development. So he put in the electrical systems in many housing developments. He was very close to his mom, who was dying of cancer. So he gave up his job as an electrician to help her. And he came and lived with her and helped her through the last 2 years of her life. Right before she died, he was out on the street. He got actually run over by a car and had 2 broken legs. And then his mother quickly died right after that. And it turned out that actually the lawyer ended up inheriting all her money. And he got a lawyer to try to help him, but by that time he was homeless and he was evicted, and he spends his life lying on the side of the street, and you saw his portrait. I'd like to go to the next person. Her name is Latosha. Latosha got out of prison 2 years ago. Why? Because she stabbed her abusive girlfriend violently, and the girlfriend was on life support for months before recovering. And she said to me, though, I had this great childhood. I said, people who have great childhoods don't stab their girlfriends. And so she said, yes, when I was a little girl, I was stabbed and mutilated like that, just as I did to her. She then started to tell me about a horrific childhood of abuse and mistreatment and a terrible background. Latosha has an associate's degree in child development and has been employed in the childcare industry. She receives no governmental support, no services, and she survives by panhandling. Next slide. This is Corey. Corey's early childhood, well, it was also pretty bad. His father was a raging drunk, and at the age of 8, his parents left him in a parking lot. Police found him and took him to foster care, and he was raised in foster care. He had a rotten childhood. At age 18, he joined the Navy and actually turned out to be a phenomenal marksman. So he was one of these sharpshooters who would take out certain targets or people that needed to be taken out. And he did 3 tours in Iraq. During the last tour, he was told to take out a target. The target actually, which was a person, saw that he was pointing the gun at him, picked up an infant and put it between Corey and himself. And so the superior officer said, shoot the target through the baby. And he said no, and he was dishonorably discharged. And he's been homeless ever since. He met Corey, he met Crystal, who's there and pregnant with his baby, and he tried so hard to find a job. He applied for so many jobs, but people don't want to hire homeless people. So he couldn't find a job. He eventually got so angry, he ended up in a fight and is back in jail. She had her baby and the baby was taken away from her. The next slide, please. This is Jake. Jake was a very successful electrician. He actually had a crew of workers in the 9/11 building. And he actually had a fear of heights. So he worked in the lower buildings, and the lower buildings were like two buildings away from the 9/11 towers. And when they hit, he ran to try to get upstairs, went outside, and saw 50 people jump to their death. And he recognized several of them as his coworkers. And he's been homeless ever since. He was just so blown away. And he's been living on the streets for 18 years. Next slide. This is also Jake. Let's take a breath and sit with our feelings for a moment. This is upsetting stuff, and I get upset. Our approach to homelessness makes no sense morally or fiscally. It's 43% cheaper to house homeless people and give them medical care and training and all sorts of amenities than to leave them on the streets. You can say, how can that be? Well, homeless people call 911, and you're mandated that if someone, no matter why, calls 911, you have to go out. They also account for a lot of the prisons, people in prison. It's criminalized to be homeless. And so you're put in prison. Do you know how costly it is to be put in prison? Do you know how costly it is? They call 911 because they feel like they're dying. So they take police time, jail time, prison time, emergency room visits, and we waste tons of money. The golden rule is to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Yet our approach is to criminalize the homeless, to be punitive, and to destroy people. I believe this is a call to arms to be a more caring society. I believe in small ripples. Small ripples can gain force and make large changes. I started painting homeless people, and to my surprise, my project is now internationally known and distributed, and I think it's affecting people. This has been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. It's helped me feel gratitude and enjoyment and happiness of the wonderful things I have, rather than getting caught up in materialism and meaningless things. I want to give a quote from Barack Obama. The best way to not feel hopeless is to get up and do something. Don't wait for good things to happen to you. If you go out and make some good things happen, you will fill the world with hope. You'll fill yourself with hope. If there's anything I'd like to leave you with today, is that each of us is one thin experience away from being traumatized, injured, or demoralized to the point where we could end up homeless. Like Jake had lots of money. He had cars and boats and multiple houses. But when a trauma hits you, he just couldn't function anymore. His wife divorced him. He lost his job. He ended up wandering around. Homeless people are people. All people are vulnerable and need help, and we need to be a community. My book is on Amazon, and as well as my movie is on my website, and you can see it for free. I want to welcome and thank you for having me here today.
in our hearts is our God. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. We are answering the call of love.
Thank you so much, Lynn and Melissa. And a sincere thank you to Dr. Perlman for sharing his important, moving images and stories and his thoughts with us this morning. We moved quickly through it, but during the time of music was an opportunity for the sharing of gifts. And I do want to remind us that generosity certainly is a core value that we aim to develop at Tapestry. And our generosity of spirit, generosity of time, and generosity of money help remind us of the abundance of our own lives. And of course, generosity helps to care for the world around us. Half of the cash collected this morning will go to support an organization that shares our values, and that organization this morning is Camp de Benneville Pine. You can read more about this important cause, this organization, in your order of service, and there's a link provided there for your contribution. Thank you for making a difference in our world and with each other. At this time, we'll extinguish our chalices, and I'll share with you these words from Amy Zucker Morgenstern. When we take the fire from our chalice, it does not become less, it becomes more. So we extinguish our chalice, but we take its light and its warmth with us, multiplying their power by all of our lives and sharing it with the world. Our closing words are by Cheryl Block. As we go forward into this frightening, exhilarating, confusing, miraculous world, may we offer our comfort to the afflicted, our love to those who are lonely, and our wish for all to be safe. Blessed be. Go in peace.